Okay, so let's get started with the very first method, that is the get method of HTTP client. The get method is used to retrieve data from a backend server, and its syntax is you pass the URL and options if at all, which is an option, the question mark you see, you can either use it or not, and it returns an observable. So let's use it. I'll use a method get posts, but before that, what is the web service we have? We have an online fake web service, which is JSON type code. If you search this, you'll get fake online REST API for developers. Click on it and we'll use this posts. So this is the web service, and we have all this given in JSON format, and we consume this and we display it on the browser. So I'll use this URL and get posts, and I say this dot HTTP client dot, we have the get method. And in get method I'll say URL, but this URL I didn't define, so I say URL of type string, which takes the value something like this. Okay, and I'll be using the same URL. I say this dot URL. Okay, so if I save it, for now you see nothing happening. At the same time, we don't end up with any error, so everything's fine. Now let us see what this returns. I use something like RET equal to, and I make this of type observable, const RET of type, or let it be of any type, which I can say any. Const must be initialized, so let's say let. Now I'll say console log RET. Let's see what this holds RET. So my intention is to see when I do the HTTP client.get and I pass a URL, I'm expecting all this information to be returned. Let's see if that is what we see in here. I expect all that JSON formatted data in RET. Let's see if that is what we receive in the console. Oh, and I did not use this anywhere, so I'll use this in my component, and again I need a reference for that service, so I say private I need post service. It's post service of type posts service. Okay, in ng on it, the moment component loads, I say this dot post service dot get posts, and I call that. This method will be called, and we use the client and HTTP client, and we pass the URL, and let's see what it returns. So ret has observable. Okay, we have an observable coming. So as I said, every HTTP client method, get, put, post, and everything, it returns an observable, and your RET now holds an observable. So what I'll do is I'll return this observable. Instead of printing over here, I'll say So this should be of type observable actually. Okay, observable of type any. Okay, now I say return ret, and because this method is returning observable, I say that the return type of this method is observable. Again, observable of type any for the moment, and this will also will be changed. It's not any, but for now we'll stick with any as of now. And I'm returning an observable. Now how do I receive that observable? And that is where your subscribe method comes into picture. When you return an observable, you need to subscribe to that, and you need to receive the data. So I say data, and I say console log that data. And if at all I have an error, I need to write over here. You see, error is an optional part. After error we have complete, but this we'll see in the next sessions. As of now, I'll only write this observer data and see what this prints. You see, data prints 100 records, user ID, all that. It's the same thing. You have SUNT, AUT. Okay, so finally we received something from web service. We used a TypeScript service. We passed that URL using http client.get, and get method, all the http method returns observable. So I've placed that into ret, which is of type observable, and I'm returning. And because this method returns an observable, now see, it is returning an observable type, I give the return type of this method as observable. And to receive an observable, I need to say subscribe. In the subscription method, I get the data and I'm printing it. If at all it goes for an error, I say error and say console log error comma error. Let us make this error work. So if I pass something like this, this is not valid, and if I save all and see, error, ERR, HTTP response error, it says HTTP failure for the this is the path which is not there actually, and that's the reason why you get this error. Status okay, status 4 not 4, which is not available. Okay, so this is how we get some information from a web service. Okay, we are able to receive data from a web service successfully, and we can also handle the error if at all there is any mistake in the URL of, or if the URL is not available. How do I display all this onto the HTML or the browser? Let us say this data holds all this information. In data 0, if I say data of 0 and see what will get, data of 0, and I save it, so you get the first record in which you have body ID, title, user ID, and if I say dot title and I save it, so you get data and the title. Now let me assign this value instead of console logging it. If I say I use variable like body of type or title of type string, and I say this dot string or the title equal to data 0 dot title, and on the HTML, if I do the interpolation and say title, so you see that coming over here. But how do I display all the information that I'm receiving from the service? It's just one that I got. So to make this happen, what we do is we create an interface component, and we have all these directives, and we have services. I'll also create a folder, and I say model, and I create a file posts.interface.ts. so this is an interface, or like a model, that holds the information of what type of data we are receiving. Export interface posts, and in this I say the type of data, user ID of, let it be number, and we have ID, let that also be number, and we have title and body. Title, let this be string, and body, let this also be string. Now you save it, and this interface posts will make, I don't need this single variable as of now, because we need to display all the data that is received. So I say posts of type posts, and I have imported it, and I make it an array. And the same thing, the data what I am receiving, now I don't console log every time, so I say this dot posts equal to data. Now I'll simply console log and say, for confirmation sake, I say this dot posts, and let's see if I'm receiving the same output in console. So it's the same thing when I say console log data and when I say console log this dot posts, there is no difference. And in here, now what I'll do is I'll have a div, not sure if Bootstrap is installed, if at all it is there, then the class will go for container, in which we can have UL, and I can have a list item li, and I need to repeat this li. So I say ng for equal to let we have, what is the variable we have given, posts, let post of posts. And if I say post, let's see what it prints, post, and save this and see what comes on screen. So it is an object, and in this I have the type like title, and again I do post dot body. Now save it, and you see all coming together. I can have it something like this to differentiate. So you see this is one thing and this is the rest of the thing. You can also use a tabular format. You can have all these details as a column, user ID, ID, title and body, and then have a table, and every table row is what you will be using the ng for, and you can display all this data in a tabular format rather than using it this way. So this is how you get, or you communicate with a web service. You get the information and you display it on your HTML, ultimately onto the browser.